Welcome to the Innovators Insider Podcast. I'm Mike LaFleche, the professor, and I am joined by my co-host, Richard Doyle, the user group guy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. It's another great day in Las Vegas, and we're...
Whoa.
Welcome, everybody, to the Innovators Insider Podcast. I am Eugenia Camacho, Product Manager at Onshape. I'm joined here by Katie. Katie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today. It is a very snowy, icy day here in Michigan. How are you, Eugenia?
I'm doing well. Just a lovely, lovely day here. I'm in Boston. Unpredictable weather right now in March, but we're here on a very special occasion. We're celebrating this very special month of Women's History Month and very special episode, with the ladies here. So just to catch up, Katie, what have you been up to? What is happening in Katie's world?
Yeah, so I recently just graduated from Olin College of Engineering right outside Boston with a mechanical engineering degree. And I recently just signed a full-time offer to go down to sunny Florida and join Universal Creative, which, if you've heard of Imagineering, it's the same kind of thing, but for Universal Studios instead of Disney parks. So I'm very excited to start off my career very soon. How about you? How are you doing on your what is supposed to be today for the podcast, Wednesday?
I am doing well. We're just, on the other side of Onshape Live, we just experienced some really exciting stuff. So now we just got to make it all happen. So we have a really good year up ahead for the product. So it's been very exciting. But I'm very excited to hear that you have the next step of your journey set. I know as an engineer, we always heard about Imagineers and how cool they are. And I can't imagine how cool they are for Universal Studios. So I'm very excited for that next step for yourself.
Thank you.
Now, as we're celebrating Women's History Month, I know every year has a different theme as we celebrate women, and it's very appropriate this year's theme. It's celebrating women who tell our stories, and what better way to tell stories than in a podcast, and especially in the Innovators Insider podcast. So I know today we're joined with very special guests from inside of Onshape, some true leaders and really people we admire that their work, how they participate and make the product better, talk with our customers. So should we welcome our guests?
Yeah, let's bring them in. I'm excited. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Hello, Jenny, Maureen. Thank you so much for joining us. To kick off this session, we're just going to have a little casual conversation chat here and learn a little bit about your stories. And to kick us off, please, Jenny, Maureen, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role that you play in Onshape.
Go ahead, Maureen.
Oh, all right then. So my name is Maureen Carroll, and I joined Onshape in May of 2021. So I'm coming up on 2 years, and I am a strategic customer success manager here within our client experience organization. And for those who may not know exactly what a customer success manager is or does, my role is to become intimately familiar with our customers, understand what their business goals are, what it is they're trying to achieve, and work closely with them on their adoption of Onshape to help them not only meet their goals, but to exceed their goals. And I work with our strategic tier of customers, and our customers operate in many different industries. So I have a chance to be involved in the production of incredible products across different industries. So that's my role here at Onshape.
Love it.
Excellent. So Maureen and I both work on the strategic team. I work on the technical services side. So I've been on Onshape 2.5 years. I've been in the CAD industry for way longer than that, probably longer than Katie and Eugenia have been alive. But I started off as an engineer working in industry, and then switched to the VAR channel for one of our competitors, and then joined Onshape 2.5 years ago. So I work in a pre-sales and post-sales role, so demos to support to helping them, just as Maureen says, be successful with their Onshape career. So
Really cool.
Awesome. It's very wonderful to hear about your various roles at Onshape. And so we have a couple of different questions that we are going to ask either both of you or one of you. And let's get started. I'm very excited about this. So, kind of kicking it off, we're wondering about the role of mentorship and the role that it took in your career or in your life in general, either mentors that helped you or you mentoring someone else, and what that meant or what it means to you.
Sure. Go ahead, Maureen. You seem like you have a thought.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually have a couple mentorship opportunities happening currently. So I reached out to a senior leader here at PTC a few months back, and based on his experience and his career progression, being similar in some ways to my own progression, I had asked him if he was entertaining being in a mentor-mentee relationship. He accepted my request. We've met a few times and we've had really riveting conversations about customer success management, about organizational structure and growth and behavior. So I'm really enjoying that relationship as a mentee to him. And then also I've gotten involved with several of our employee resource groups here at PTC, and most recently involved with our early career ERG, and just talking, talking as an organization about what is it like to be early in your career, and how can you have formal and informal relationships that help you grow as a person, as an individual, as a team contributor. And there's some mentor program activity happening with our women of PTC, so we're kind of teaming up with them there. So I really have some great active mentor-mentee relationships happening right now. I'm also a member of the Family ERG and the co-chair of the Soul Parenting ERG. And so in those relationships and those meetings, we're constantly mentoring each other on what is it like to be a parent? What is it like to be a soul parent? So I try to keep myself pretty active in the mentorship realm in my personal life too. And I'm able to do that through PTC's employee relationship group. So, yeah.
Cool. My mentor and mentorship roles haven't been as formal, I would say. I was blessed to have excellent bosses right out of school. My first job was a machinist, was an engineer, really taught me the ropes of the career and how to be an engineer. And then in the CAD space, I've had great mentorship who have let me grow, kind of take the reins on my jobs, do what I think the job needed to have done. So I think that helps you a lot when your boss just backs your decisions rather than questioning everything you do. I think that sometimes there's always that, I don't know if it's a meme or what you call it, but the difference between a leader and a boss, and the leader has got the leader is helping you and the boss is whipping you. And I've always kind of kept that, whether I've been an individual contributor, I've worked in a management role. That's always kind of been my goal, is to lead people if I'm in a leadership role, or support if I'm not in a leadership role. My interesting thing here at Onshape is the gentleman that is my boss now used to work for me. So it's been kind of a flip. So it's always interesting when that happens as well. When he left working for the company we were both at, he kept calling me once a year, like, "Hey, you wanna?" And then when it was finally the right time, it has worked out really well. In terms of mentoring, my kids are high school age, junior high school, so I try to stay involved with like their Lego League groups and that kind of thing. My daughter's tech teacher today asked her, "One of your parents work for Onshape?" She's like, "My mother does." So that was kind of fun. Just not anything formal, but just reaching out, helping when you can help, I think is the most important thing. So
I love that. I feel like mentorship can be seen in very different forms. Like Maureen said, you can seek those out, seek your mentors, which can be a little bit daunting. I know for myself, one of like some of the best mentors are those that I see and I'm like, maybe if I just ask them or email them, they'll be fine. And usually they are happy to help. And I think that's a great journey. There's programs inside of companies, and there's also outside of your work type of mentorship, like you said, Jenny, with your family, with your kids. So I absolutely love that. I think that's, very helpful. And when you're mentoring or part of this, one of the big questions is, what's next? What are you working on? What do you want to develop? And I know we're all working on our next step. What are our aspirations? So I do want to ask both of you, what is something that you're doing to continue to grow and develop, or something you're working towards right now? So if you could share that, that would be very, very insightful.
I think for me, the job itself lends itself to constant growth. The way Onshape releases something new every 3 weeks, as the tech person, you have to make sure you know all of those things. For me, switching from a CAD package that I was comfortable with for 15 years and then going to a brand new one was daunting. It was, can I learn all of this stuff all over again? You're convinced there's only so much room in your brain. Can I cram more in? For me personally, it's staying up to it, the day-to-day improvements. But I find I struggle with coding as a mechanical engineer. Code has always been my so I'm really trying to push myself to get through the feature script training, to get more comfortable with the API. So not so I'm going to go out and write stuff like Neil does. I'm not writing a wiring script. You could give me 3 years and $1 million. I don't think I could pull that off. But I want to be better at it so I can help customers write their own and troubleshoot them. I've gotten pretty comfortable with our workflow side of the coding. So now I just need to kind of grow that into the other phases of what we have available. So for me, that's just the day-to-day job keeps you moving forward. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And I would say similar for me, I came into my role here at Onshape not having a CAD or engineering background. And so for me, I am constantly challenging myself to learn more, to learn more about CAD, to learn more about engineering. Now, I also challenge myself to stay in my own lane, right? Because my skill is relationship management. My skill is getting to know a company, understanding who's who, what's important to who, how can I support them be successful. And I have partners like Jenny, where when there's a technical question, I say, hey, Jenny, so-and-so needs you. But I'm always challenging myself to grow. So for instance, yesterday during Onshape Live 2023, I facilitated a conversation on reimagining your processes with agile development. So I had to kind of take myself out of my comfort zone and really, get in depth conversations with 3 of our customers to understand their processes and how they're applying Onshape to their processes to become more agile, to get products to the market quicker and with less waste, et cetera. So challenging myself to kind of go out of my comfort zone. I do see myself here long term, right? And the more intimate I can become with the product and with the industry, the better I'll be, the more equipped I'll be. But staying in my zone, like I said, the relationship management piece is my thing. But yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. It's very cool to hear about various people's aspirations, especially as a person in the starting of their career. It's always helpful to kind of see down the road, what should I look at or what should I be focusing on now, so that down the road I could continue to develop something else instead. Awesome. So this next question is specifically for Jenny. We're wondering about some of the strategies that you might have had to use to kind of maybe overcome challenges that you might have faced being a woman in a more male-dominated industry. And just to throw some stats out there, recently the U.S. Census Bureau reported that only 9% of the workforce for mechanical engineers is women. So that's a pretty small amount right now. So what did it feel like? What kind of challenges did you have to overcome?
So growing up, I'm one of 3 kids. My sister was my mom and I was always my dad. And so it never occurred to me that that was different. Like I was just like, oh, you're just like your dad, just like your dad. I liked working on cars. I liked working on woodworking projects. There's Legos all over my house. That never occurred to me. My parents just encouraged me to do what I wanted to do. When I was graduating high school, I went to business school, and then 2 years in went, no, I don't want to do this. And I had friends that were studying engineering, and I was like, well, that looks much more fun. So I switched, and I was lucky to land at UMass, where there was more diversity of students in general. But I was one of 4 mechanical engineering graduates when I graduated. So you just kind of get used to it. But my mantra has always been, if you're good at what you do, then what your packaging is shouldn't matter. It never occurred to me that that would be a detriment. You run into your once in a while an advisor or a professor or what have you, but you just prove them wrong, and that's even more satisfying. And they're almost more proud of you at the end of the day. You run into a little bit of, the machine shop has a calendar on the wall, but I don't care. So if you don't, your boss is like, make a big deal. No, don't. I don't care. But I just always found if you do your job, then it doesn't matter. I love walking into a demo, especially when I'm walking with a female salesperson as well. And you get that little bit of like, what are the, you know what I mean? What are they doing here? And then you just kick butt and you go on your way. So I think my focus has always just been on that. Be good at what you do. And sometimes you get challenged a little bit more, pushed a little bit more. But I mean, you guys are all good at what you do. Katie, you've landed what sounds like a phenomenal job. My sister's oldest graduated from Olin a few years ago. Same thing. They've landed a job working in Philadelphia at a science museum and like a STEAM tech kind of place. And they love it.
That's
So
cool.
Amazing. Yeah.
I think whatever you want to do, whether just do it, if it, there's no reason anything should keep you from getting that done. So
For sure.
I love that. I love that. I think we all deserve a seat at the table. Also, coming from a mechie background, it can be daunting. And I think through college, it can be daunting. Maybe most of your projects are all male dominated, but you are there equally as they are.
Yeah.
And so I think that should give you all the strength to say what you need to say. So
I remember when you
love that.
finished your presentation, Eugenia, what's the internship program called?
The rotational program.
The rotational program. Your presentation at the end of that was one of the most impressive things I've seen. We were all like, holy Toledo, these kids are going to kick our butts. So us old people get better at technology than we are.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the younger generation, not that I'm that old, but inspires you. You guys are just more driven than we had to be. We didn't have, like my son now for National Honor Society. It's not just grades. It's volunteer hours. They're much more driven through college now than I think we had the pleasure of being. So yeah, you guys are impressive coming up behind us. So
I think it's all together, right? We have strength. Like you said, that story, like you walk in with someone who's a female, it's like nothing needs to be said, but it strengthens us.
Yeah.
Nothing needs to be said. And that's, the wonderful thing, that as we become more in the room,
yeah,
it's way better.
I mean,
Now,
you look at our staff, I think there's 6 or 8 of us just on my particular team. And so it's not an anomaly now. I think, I mean, it's 9%, but it feels more than that. I suppose it depends on your industry. So
absolutely. Now to kind of look more on your story, Maureen, I know, I'm in product management. I'm more on the technical side. I would love to learn a little bit more about customer success world and specifically your story, because you came from the healthcare space in customer success first.
Yes.
And then you entered the CAD and the engineering world. What was that like for you? What contrasts did you see? What did you like? What did you learn as well as part of it?
Absolutely. So I was part of a workforce reduction in January of 2021, peak COVID, peak pandemic. And so as I began the interview process, there were a lot of unknowns at that time in the healthcare industry. Many of the companies I was interviewing with were really not sure of their direction for one reason or another. And so I said, I really better take a look and consider roles outside of the healthcare space. And I did wonder if I was going to struggle because I really have an affinity for the healthcare space. However, what I've discovered is in my time here at Onshape and working with and becoming more intimate with my customers is their passion for the products that they're delivering. I do happen to work with one customer right now who is a medical device company. And so that is bringing me closer to healthcare. And my management knows that when strategic accounts come in the healthcare space, the med device space, I'm definitely interested in being involved in those. But even for my non-med device companies, they are just passionate about the products that they're bringing to their customers. They want to please their customers. And so for me, things like making sure I'm really listening to the customer, making sure I'm really hearing their concerns, making sure I'm bringing that information back to my team. So when I come back from client visits, for instance, I want to tell the developers and the engineers and the product folks and the research and development folks, I want to tell them more about what this company is trying to achieve, right? It's not just about the widgets. It's not just about the code. We're playing a big part in how the world is receiving their products. One thing that I always make sure of, and this has grown even stronger because I am so relationship based. I tell my peers all the time, if I'm doing something or not doing something that isn't working well for you, please tell me, because I won't know otherwise, and I'll just keep doing it. Right. So I spend a lot of time focusing on what is the impact I'm having on the world around me. Am I being a good coworker? Am I being a good vendor, if you will? My main goal is for my customers never to call me a vendor, right? I want them to call me their partner. But am I being a good vendor? Am I listening to what their concerns are? Am I trying to deliver for them? Am I bringing their voice back into the research and development organization, back into the product organization? The beauty of Onshape is that it's maturing day in and day out. And so our strategic customers have the ability to be part of that maturation. But I have to make sure I'm bringing their voices back in. So that's a lot of what I focus on in my role in terms of my strengths and trying to improve upon them.
I love that. I mean, our customers are really in all industries. So wherever anyone comes from, you'll find them through the products that they make. So I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of finding voices and everything, our next question is for both of you. It's about how do you help encourage and foster diversity in your workplace? And how do you kind of help people find their voices, especially those who might be in more of the minority?
I think it's hard now that a lot of us are remote. As much as we love remote, it's harder to take somebody by the hand and help them out.
Yeah.
But you reach out to people, you establish, whether through Slack or through Teams or however you can, build those relationships, check in on people. But just, I think, as I said a minute ago, you focus on the person and their skill set is the most important part. So
Yeah.
I think our tech staff does a great job of having a diverse group. As much, you can only pick from who applies. That always is the challenge. But we have a lot of women on staff. I think PTC as a company does a great job of fostering diversity. But you reach out and help out where you can. If you see somebody floundering or struggling, or somebody's new, or somebody comes to you with an idea later, be like, hey, bring that up. Like, you're good at this. Don't be afraid to speak out. Because I think whether you're a woman or a junior engineer or somebody new to a company, you're always worried about that. So, and there's nothing worse than the opposite of that, when you say something to your boss and they present it as an idea that was theirs. Yeah, no, I'm not good with that. So you definitely have to just give them the encouragement, hold their hand, pull them along as you can. So how about you, Maureen?
I was thinking about this because I've attended a lot of sessions in the last couple months here at work and in my personal life. And I truly believe the best way to foster diversity is to really just peel it back and admit your differences, right? And admit, I don't understand what it's like to be X. Can you help me understand? And asking that question with not only an open mind, but with an open heart, right? Several months back, we had an exercise around privilege. And, when I was in that exercise and I was engaging with my fellow PTCers, there were topics of privilege that I never even thought about because I don't have to, right? I haven't had to in my life. And so I think coming into situations with just an open heart and an open mind, and understanding that there are going to be things I just don't understand and that I have to ask. And, I have a 16-year-old who is very woke, and I will try to have conversations and she'll correct me and tell me, you can't say that. And I say to her, I'm not saying it from anywhere other than a place of wanting to understand. I am not trying to offend anybody. I'm truly trying to learn. And in my experience, both in work and out of work, when I have put myself into these conversations and these exercises, the other people there are usually very open-minded and open-hearted as well. That's why they're there, right? I want to learn. I want to learn how to engage in a room and in an environment where everybody doesn't look like me, or sound like me, or act like me, or have been raised like me. So I think to foster diversity, you really have to be willing to understand that it exists, and that differences do exist, and be open. So I hope that answered the question.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, I think the little things you can put into play, even if they're small, can make a massive impact on how someone listens to a conversation. I know Johnny McElhaney from Onshape. He was once giving a presentation, and in his presentation, he would say, I know sometimes we default with him and he would say she, your leader, your manager, she, and he would kind of incorporate it more, both genders as leaders into his conversation. It was so small, but I noticed. And after that conversation, I was like, just the fact that he considered both genders rather than going to the default CAD guys situation in a presentation, I heard it and it felt so nice. So it's sometimes those smaller things that maybe some people are like, it's okay, we'll let it pass, might impact more people than we know. So I love that.
I'm not typically one to call out that kind of thing, but I remember being at a large user conference, we'll go with, and they had done that over and over and over and over again. He, him, he, just CAD guy, same thing. And so we're at a social event, and I walked up to the head of sales, and I was like, engineers are women too. He was like, I didn't. I'm like, the entire time. He was like, I will work on that, because I think that's just the default. And you don't want to rock the boat kind of thing, but it matters. It does
It
matter.
matters.
It matters.
Yeah.
So
And it's slowly, it's progressively, we're progressing here. Like I also often say, hey guys, but it's it's part of now the wokeness of everything, you could say. Like now we're changing and are more aware of our language, our daily language. But moving forward, I love talking about the people we admire, the women in our life that we admire. I know I come from a girls team. My mom and my sisters are my number one team. All my sisters, my younger sister's going to college. She's going to study engineering, and my older sister's she's an engineer as well, myself. So we've got, a power dynamic, and we all admire my mom the most. She's like my biggest shining star. And obviously your mom is your first mentor, you could say. Your parents are your first mentors. But who has been the most influential person in your life? If it's family, if it's someone at work, a mentor, who has it been?
So I grew up in the city, and I grew up in the city, and there was a lot going on. And I was a member of the Charlestown Youth Organization, which was an organization that helped kids be busy. Because when you're not busy as a kid, a preteen and a teen, the chance you're going to get into trouble is a lot greater. And so it was sports, and it was activities, and it was charity work. And the woman who ran that program, one of the women who ran that program, her name was Carroll. And she would challenge us about making the right decisions. She would help us build confidence. You could go to her and say, I'm in a little bit of trouble, and she would work with you on it. She wouldn't just pick up the phone and call your parent right away. And I was in a Boys and Girls Club fundraising event a few months back, and this question came up, and it was like, have you ever told that person Have you ever told that person that had such an impact on your life? And I hadn't. So I went on Facebook Messenger and I sent her a message and I said, I just want you to know that I'm at an event and we were in an exercise around somebody that made an impact on our lives. And the question was, have you ever told them? And I haven't told you this. I mean, I see this person in passing, but I haven't spent time with this person in 30 years. And she was so moved. She was like, I can't believe you sent me this message. It means so much to me. Thank you so much. And so she's definitely somebody I think of when I think of somebody that made a big impact on my life, building confidence, helping me understand how to treat others, showing me the value and the satisfaction that comes from being in service or being in charity to others. So that's somebody that I think of when this type of question is asked.
I mean, for me, just like you said, Eugenia, I mean, I've had professional bosses or mentors, but for me, it's my mom. My mom worked 2, 3 jobs to get us to where we are today. Couple of years ago, when you have your kids in daycare and then they hit an age when they're going to go to school, and you look at the school calendar and you're like, they have 36 days. They don't have school, and I don't have that much vacation time, not to mention summers and all of that. So my mom, I want to say 7 years ago now, retired. It was about the right time as well. But she retired and she runs what we now affectionately call Grammy Camp. So still I'm not going to say her age online,
Ooh,
but she takes my 3 kids, my brother's 3 kids, my sister's 2 kids originally. They're graduated from college now, but she takes those kids all summer and she rolls them with an iron fist. They do fun stuff. They go here, they go there, they do this, they do that. February vacation, she just took them for 2 days. And so she's passing along that hard work ethic. She grew up in Danvers. She grew up working on the farm up in Maine in the summer. And she takes no crap from anyone. And she raised 3 kids and we're all successful and we're all doing well and we're all married and have kids and are all, but she's always been the most powerful woman in my life and the most powerful mentor. I grew up being like my dad, but I've always admired my mom, if that makes sense. So,
beautiful.
Aw.
how about you, Katie?
Wait, I have to put a little tag in for my mom. My mom was
Maureen's like, I don't want to get in trouble with my mother.
she's in heaven now, but she's looking down. So she was important too.
Mom appreciation time, apparently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say to go with the flow here, I definitely would say my mom as well. She also studied engineering, so that was one of the kind of push for me to also kind of follow in her footsteps. She was like one woman out of a classroom of men back in the 80s, so it was very
Aw.
inspirational to kind of hear that she really went and ran with it and did all of these amazing things. I was like, I want to do something like that too, and kind of change the world for the better. So yeah, definitely up there with the moms.
Mhm.
Yeah. So kind of moving on, maybe on the mom role, maybe a little bit more on just in general with both work and home life. We kind of had a question about the work-life balance and also burnout. We know that since the pandemic, especially on the woman's side, a lot more women were kind of not forced, but semi-forced just because of the situation to also take care of the things that are happening at home. And that led to a lot of work burnout. So we're wondering, how would you kind of recommend these women to overcome these challenges? What are things that you might have done to overcome these challenges, or any other tips and tricks or advice?
Yeah, so I switched jobs during the pandemic. I was at a different job when the pandemic hit, but I had worked remote or worked as a consultant, like out of my own house. So that was normal for me, the being home. What wasn't normal is suddenly everybody else in my house was also home.
Yeah.
And so I had, our youngest was finishing kindergarten when the pandemic hit. We had a 3rd grader and a 5th grader, I think. Yeah. And so suddenly they're home and um, the oldest did okay. He's very computer savvy. You'd have to yell down and remind them to log into their class because they'd finish with one and you'd have to get them back in. My daughter struggled a lot. She missed her friends. But with our kindergartner, you couldn't just be like, here, do your work. they can read, but they can't follow directions. And so you'd hear her poor teacher online and they'd say their names like 800 times. Miss Keene, Miss Keene, Miss Keene. But you just had to find a balance. My husband and I were both home. We both have the same career. So we would just be like, what are your meetings today? What do you have? Can you cover first grade gym? Whatever we had to do. In terms of work-life balance, we spent a lot more time home, which made it easier, but you had people in your space all the time, which made it harder. Being able to work wherever we can work is much easier. I can do my job from anywhere. So if I have to bring my kid was in PT for 9 months last year. I can bring my phone, I can bring my computer, I can, I think the remote work, as much as the pandemic was terrible, I think people realize you can do your job from a lot more different places now. You'll have people sign into a meeting from their car. Eugenia's boss has definitely joined meetings from his car. I know and I think people realize that your life takes priority sometimes, and you have to be able to be like, nope, I have to get somebody to here. I will log back in at 8 o'clock and finish that up, types of things. So that, I think, as much as it was a challenge, added that extra perk of people realize that it's not just 8 to 5 that you can get your job done. I've definitely answered customers' emails from karate while I'm sitting there watching my kids kick things. So you just have to figure out your balance, but you also have to, Maureen and I were talking about, we have a work trip coming up in 2 weeks. And the first thing I did was check, is there a gym at the hotel we're going to? Like, I need my half an hour of lifting heavy things and putting them back down to feel clean at the end of the day. So I'm like, is there a gym? And she was like, oh, good, I'll bring my sneakers. So I think you just have to prioritize whatever makes your come back down, whether that's reading, the old cheesy adage of taking a bath that has never been soothing to me. For me, it's doing something productive. So that's what works for me. How about you, Maureen?
I would say building accountability. I am constantly focused on building accountability so that when the time does come when I have to say to my manager, you know what, I need to take a half day off tomorrow. I need to bring my daughter to the doctors, or I have to take a half day. I need to bring my dad to the doctors. I'm doing that bookend thing right now where I'm raising a kid and helping a parent. But really just building accountability, right? Doing the right thing, making sure you're available when you need to be. And when you can't be, through that accountability, you have team members and you have management that says, you work hard all the time. And if you need the day off, I'm here. Let me know what I need to do. The other tip that I have along with the accountability is, and I've worked on this for a long time in my career, and anytime I'm speaking with somebody that's earlier in their career, I talk about this, understanding the line between pride and arrogance. Right. You can, as you become more and more accountable, you are building pride, right? And you're saying, like, I am good at what I do. I love what I do. I give it my all. And when I can't be there because I have something in my personal life that has to take precedence, I know that people are going to want to support me, because when I've had to support them, they've been able to take the time they need. So I'd say building accountability and understanding that you can be prideful and not arrogant. I was a recruiter for many years before I moved into sales, which then I led into customer success. And my number one tip to people when they would be interviewing is, when you're in an interview and somebody's asking you about yourself, think about somebody in your life that you care a lot about, that you're proud of, and pretend you're talking about them, because that helps you talk from a place of pride versus arrogance.
Wow.
So that's really a tip that I talk a lot about when I'm thinking about this topic.
So sweet.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point there. I'm jotting down notes right now so I can remember that. And speaking of notes, one other question we kind of had was, what are some resources or books or even podcasts that you recommend sharing, or you recommend other women listening or reading about and kind of using as a resource who might be pursuing a similar role to yours in their career?
I'm going to let you grab this one, because I'm going to be honest, I don't do a lot of the podcasting and all of those things. I'm kind
Yes.
of wrapped up in the day-to-day. So when I get a chance to read, or I used to when I was in a manager role, I would read a lot of manager books. But in today's day-to-day, I don't tend to.
Yeah. So customer success management, for many years, the concept of managing your customers' success really wasn't as well defined. It was more about client experience, and it kind of just happened in your client experience organization, somewhat in your sales organization. But I would say there is a lot of opportunity to learn about what is customer success management. And as you're making career choices, making a decision to engage in an organization that really does invest in customer success management. When I was interviewing with Onshape and I was asking questions around processes that are in place and models that are in place, I was impressed with the work that Onshape has done and PTC overall has done in truly defining and investing in customer success management. It isn't just an aspect of client experience. It's an organization. It has a hierarchy. It has resources. We play a very integral role in the process that our customers go through as they're exploring Onshape and adopting Onshape and being successful with Onshape. So I would say from a customer success management perspective, there are a lot of resources. There's lots of podcasts and conversation around what is customer success management and what is the maturation of it. So I would say make sure that if you do have a passion for customer success management, that you are looking at organizations that are really making the investment in it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think something a little bit adjacent is, so my connection with Onshape is that I interned for them for a bit of time during COVID. I took a gap year from school and worked with all of these amazing people. And one of the things that I kind of helped start was a user group called Women Who CAD. So this is a shameless plug for anyone who's out there who hasn't heard of that yet. And we are another Onshape user group. So we do talk about Onshape a lot, but we also talk about kind of what we're doing today with being a woman in an industry where it's mostly male dominated and what that kind of means with the territory or tips and tricks or anything else that might come up. So if you haven't heard about that, we will be having a meetup probably in April. We just had one in January, and be on the lookout. We're on LinkedIn. We're also on, Richard can talk about it more as well. We're everywhere on social media and stuff. So look us up if you haven't heard about it. But yeah, just wanted to do a shameless plug for that.
That is pretty badass, Katie. I love that you started that Women Who CAD. I'm like, this is necessary. This is key. I love that. And that's an applause to you, Katie, because you've done so much, and it's like you're about to start, your career, but you've already achieved so much, which is incredible. So I love that. And I love that there's all these resources of, kind of like there's low effort, and then like the books and the podcasts. I'm like, I need to get better at reading books. I'm a podcast gal. I'm like, I like listening and putting on my headphones and going, but I do love signing up for newsletters. I think that's something that I've learned in the last year. My manager, Greg, actually, he like kind of tuned me into newsletters, and other people at work. Like, if there's a topic you like, there's a newsletter out there. So there's a lot of like CAD industry newsletters, and this is how I stay up to speed with what's happening out in the world or specific topics I'm interested in, or even just, external, like status of the world, getting the news, understanding new topics as well. But it's really beautiful, and honestly, this conversation has been really wonderful. I think, Onshape's very lucky to have, both you, Jenny, and Maureen part of the team. That's extremely awesome. And I think we're lucky that we get to work with such a cool product, which is Onshape. Now,
Yeah.
we just rode the wave of Onshape Live. We're jazzed. Both of you had a session, both killed it, but we have a great year ahead of us. So what are both of you looking most forward to from the product and the future of Onshape in itself in the CAD industry? What excites you?
For me, for yesterday, for presenting at Onshape Lab, I got to present with a woman from a customer. So that was fantastic for me. That was fun to just have a conversation about kind of what we've done with our careers in terms of, I spent 15 years migrating people's data. So just chatting about that. But I think just the constant improvement with Onshape, the constant change, and honestly, the attitude of everybody we work with. Everybody's excited to be here. You hopefully won't have it, but we've all had that coworker who's just like, and you just get sick of them. You know what I mean? You're like, I know. And not in like a one-upper, but just everyone here is excited to be here. They're excited about the product. They're excited about what it can do. They're honest about what we can't do yet, but we're willing to fix it. So I think the honesty and the enthusiasm of the company is really my favorite part. Obviously, there's improvements that I want personally to come out all the time. But really just that constant self-reflection the company does of like, customers are asking for this. We've worked with this new major account and surfacing is really important to them. Or I have this account and they really need that sheet metal feature, and that constant like reshuffling of that list that Maureen and I do to then go talk to Greg or go talk to Lou or go talk to anybody else on staff and get those things kicked up a little bit higher. Just the constant ability that people listen here and care about their jobs. So.
Yeah, and in my role as a strategic customer success manager, I've had the opportunity and privilege to spend a lot of time with John Hirschtick. And in his new role as chief evangelist, he has set a goal for himself. I won't say exactly what the goal is, but he wants to get out more to customers. And so I've had the chance to travel with him and Jenny as well, travel with him to customers and seeing his passion, talking about Onshape, talking about the opportunity that exists. I'm a true believer that we can look at things in life as a challenge or we can look at them as an opportunity. Onshape has so much maturation that it's able to experience that is an opportunity. And getting out on the road and seeing John with our customers and hearing him, we have these sessions called Ask Me Anything, where they can ask him anything. And we have interns who are coming out of school where they used Onshape. We have people that have been in the company for 30 years that are excited about Onshape because they've only heard a little bit about it from their coworker, and they're like, how do I get a seat? So for me, the opportunities that exist to mature Onshape further and further, and being able to work with not only my coworkers, but also one of our founders, is just really exciting. So that's what I'm excited about most for Onshape.
I agree. The people, the product, the customers. There's something so exciting when you go see how a customer is using your product and then how excited and jazzed they are when they're working on it. Like, yeah, this is super cool. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool to see somebody else get so excited. But I do agree. Us at Onshape, lots of passion. That never stops.
Oh yeah, for sure. Have to agree. Even though I was there for a very short amount of time, I definitely picked up a lot of that passion as well and still have it today. So it is a very infectious passion for sure. All right. Well, that was the end of our questions. We just wanted to thank you so much, Jenny and Maureen, for coming on this podcast and having this wonderful conversation with us about all of the different things in your career and everything else that comes with it. I had one more last question. If anyone wanted to reach out and ask a little bit more about your experiences in your career, how can they find you? What would be the best way to contact you?
Probably on LinkedIn, wouldn't you think? Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Maureen. I know you are as well. That's how Maureen actually found us. She reached out cold. I don't know what it is when you cold call somebody on LinkedIn, what that's called, but she messaged me, and that's how Maureen even got here. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I know Maureen is. Look us up by Onshape. I don't think we're that hard to find, but
Absolutely.
That's great. So if anyone wants to do that, feel free to reach out, and feel free to reach out to either me or Eugenia as well. We are happy to talk on LinkedIn as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jenny and Maureen. Unfortunately, we will have to end this podcast. I want to keep talking because this has been such an amazing time, and all of the really wonderful things that you guys have said have been really insightful and very helpful, and I have been taking lots of notes. So
fantastic.
we really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Maybe based on this performance, maybe you'll see us again, everyone, on the Innovators Insider podcast. So
If we
thank
get
you so
enough
much.
views, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe we'll just take over the roles of the other two hosts that we won't even speak of.
Exactly. Thank you guys so much. This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for
everyone.
tuning in, everyone.